Welcome back to Jersey Matters. Lead has been banned in paint, gasoline, and piping starting in the late 1970s, and yet it is still a major problem in New Jersey. Here to talk about that is Elyse Pivnik, who is Director of Environmental Health at Isles, a community development organization that has been in the forefront of lead poisoning prevention in New Jersey. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I thought we dealt with this. How big of a problem is it?
It's a big problem, and a lot of people think that because we took lead out of new paint and lead out of gasoline in the late 70s, that we were done with the problem. But what we know is that people who are living in older housing, a lot of New Jersey cities are very old housing with lead that was applied 100 years ago. And when that housing is not well maintained, that lead becomes lead chips, it starts peeling, and you have lead dust on the floor, which is invisible really, and the child can be ingesting that and causing lifelong damage for that child.
And this isn't just theory. You have cases of lead poisoning still in New Jersey. How many?
Absolutely. Department of Health publishes an annual report. What we do know is I think it's about 3,000 new children, or children for the first time, had high leads in 2014. And about 220,000 children had high leads, I think, since they started collecting data over the last 10 years.
We have done interviews and stories in the past year on something that I wasn't even aware of until it came to light in Newark, and that is the aging water infrastructure, not only in New Jersey, but throughout the East Coast. I know you deal with this nationally. It is something that many people that are looking at it say this has to be taken care of now. Sure. Could you talk about that problem?
Sure. The lead in water is a big problem, and it's a problem that really has been off the radar because, for example, schools are able to get their certificate of occupancies by using the water report from the water treatment plant of their particular district. But no one was paying attention to what was happening to the water as it passed through the pipes and got to the schools through the drinking fountains and the like. And the water, no lead exposure is good. So there's no safe lead level, and lead exposure is cumulative. But what's really important to know is that the experts tell us a far greater problem for lead exposure than what's available in water is what comes from old lead paint in housing, by far.
So are you focusing on both? Or you're saying you're focusing on the paint because that's a problem we can get rid of easier and quicker?
So we have been focusing on old lead paint because that's where the most exposure is. But with the Flint situation that has opened up people's hearts and minds about lead, we now are testing for water in a way that had never been done. And we are seeing the problems there. So we are interested in eliminating exposure to lead in housing, in water, and in soil. So
what parents need to know is if their children are in a school that was built before 1978, there is an excellent chance that there is, unless they've changed the piping, which they probably haven't, there's an excellent chance that there is lead in their water.
Sure, and probably the older schools more so. So you want to look for those drinking fountains that are very old, that are made with tiny bits of lead piping, because lead was used because it's very malleable. It's a very soft metal that's easy to use in a drinking fountain situation.
It was fascinating to me that when I started talking about water, you brought it back to paint. And so is it your fear that we take our eye off the ball?
Well, I feel like you have to deal with both. It's not either or. It's important not to get only excited about water. You really need to pay attention to the housing of small children.
Are we paying attention to it? Is Trenton paying attention to this?
Trenton is doing its best to pay attention. At Isles, we have tested over 2,000 homes for hazardous lead levels, and easily 60% of them shouldn't be lived in by children. It's a very difficult problem to fix. We are very pleased at Isles. Well, the City of Trenton just got a big grant from HUD to start renovating homes, and we have a new grant from DCA which will help us do the same. So we're starting to make some headroads, but it's a huge problem because we're going to do about 300 homes, let's say, and it's a much, much bigger problem than that. And it's not just government's job to solve this problem. I think it's really important that our local governments pay attention to their housing codes and say, how come we're not enforcing our housing code? How come private landlords are able to rent a home to somebody without having to expose the problems of lead? One of the bills that we're working on with state legislators is to have a lead-safe certificate bill so that no one can rent a house in New Jersey that has not been tested for lead. So you know, and if you're a landlord, it's up to you to make that home lead safe.
Well, great luck with that. And it sounds like what you're saying also is not only does Trenton have to care, but we all have to care as a community if we're going to fix this problem. And I hope this is a step in the right direction. Thank you so much for being here. Elyse Pivnik is the Director of Environmental Health at ISLES, and ISLES has been around for 35 years, a community development organization that has been in the forefront of lead poisoning prevention in New Jersey and also across the nation. Coming up, a nurse who takes inner city neighborhood care into her own hands when Jersey Matters continues.